Have you ever done something kind for a complete stranger, expecting nothing in return, only to discover that one small act changed more than one life? Sometimes the people carrying the heaviest burdens are the ones who never ask for help. And sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to notice. This story isn't about wealth, fame, or grand gestures. It's about an ordinary drive home after school that quietly became the reason a family found hope again. Stay with me, because by the end, you might see kindness in a completely different way. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartfelt stories that remind us there is still good in the world, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Story, and leave a comment telling us about a moment when someone showed you unexpected kindness. Your support helps us share more stories that inspire hope. My name is Daniel, and every afternoon after work, I drove the same road home through our small town in Ohio. The streets were familiar, the traffic was light, and my routine almost never changed. One rainy Monday, I noticed a boy walking alone with a backpack nearly as big as he was. He couldn't have been older than 11. The rain was pouring, but he didn't seem to care. His shoes were soaked, and he kept his head down as if he hoped no one would notice him. I slowed my truck and rolled down the window. "Hey, buddy. Need a ride?" He looked at me for a long moment before quietly asking, "How much?" The question caught me off guard. "It doesn't cost anything," I said with a smile. "I'm heading your way anyway." He hesitated before climbing in. During the ride, he barely spoke. He simply thanked me when we reached a small apartment building and hurried inside. The next afternoon, I saw him walking again. This time I stopped without asking. "Hop in." He smiled just a little. That tiny smile was enough to brighten my whole day. Soon it became our routine. Every weekday, I'd see him waiting near the same corner. We'd drive the 15 minutes to his apartment, talking about baseball, school, superheroes, and whatever else came to mind. His name was Ethan. He loved science and dreamed of becoming an engineer someday. He said bridges fascinated him because they helped people reach places they couldn't reach alone. I told him that was a pretty good reason to build them. Weeks passed before I realized something was wrong. No parent ever came outside. No one waved from the window. Ethan always unlocked the apartment himself. One afternoon I finally asked, "Who's usually home?" "My mom," he answered. "Does she work from home?" He looked out the window. "Not anymore." He didn't say another word. I didn't push. Sometimes kindness means waiting until someone is ready to tell their story. A few days later, Ethan seemed quieter than usual. When we arrived, he didn't get out immediately. "My mom says I shouldn't bother people." I smiled. "You've never bothered me." He looked at me with eyes far older than 11. "She says people always expect something back." Those words stayed with me all night. The next afternoon, when Ethan climbed into the truck, he handed me a folded piece of paper. "My mom wants to know why you've been driving me home." Inside was a short note. It read, "Please tell me what you expect in return." The handwriting was careful but shaky. I understood immediately. Someone had hurt this family before. The next day, instead of dropping Ethan off and leaving, I walked him to the apartment door. A woman opened it slowly. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and she held herself as though carrying an invisible weight. "I'm Ethan's mom," she said cautiously. "I'm Daniel." She looked at me for a moment before asking the question that had clearly been troubling her. "Why have you been driving my son home every day?" I smiled gently. "Because someone should." She stared at me without speaking. Then tears filled her eyes. She covered her face and began crying quietly. After a few moments she apologized. "I'm sorry. It's just, people don't usually help without wanting something." I nodded. "I know." She invited me inside for coffee. The apartment was small but neat. As we talked, she shared their story. Her husband had died unexpectedly the previous year. Medical bills had taken almost everything. She had recently lost her job while recovering from surgery. Without a car, Ethan walked nearly 4 miles home every day because the school bus route had changed. She worried every afternoon until he finally walked through the door. I hated knowing he was out there alone, she admitted. But I couldn't do anything. I realized those rides weren't simply saving Ethan from a long walk. They were giving his mother peace of mind. The following weekend, I spoke with a few friends from church. None of us had much money, but everyone had something to offer. One friend repaired cars. Another owned a small grocery store. Someone else knew employers looking for reliable workers. Within 2 weeks, the mechanic fixed an old donated car. The grocery store quietly delivered food every Friday. A local business offered Ethan's mom a flexible office job once she recovered completely. No one asked for recognition. No one wanted credit. We simply wanted to remind one family they weren't alone. Months later, Ethan invited me to his school's science fair. He proudly showed me a model bridge he had built. A small handwritten sign sat beside it. Across the top it read, "Strong bridges help people reach home." His teacher smiled. "Ethan says someone inspired this project." He looked at me and grinned. I felt a lump in my throat. Years passed. Life moved on. Ethan graduated high school with honors. Then college. One afternoon, almost 10 years later, I received an invitation to a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new pedestrian bridge downtown. The lead engineer was Ethan Collins. Standing before hundreds of people, he thanked his family, his teachers, and then paused. I also want to thank one man who probably thought he was only giving a kid a ride home. He looked directly at me. But what he really gave me was proof that kindness still exists. Because of him, I learned that the strongest bridges aren't made of steel or concrete. They're built by people who choose to care. The crowd applauded, but I could barely hear them. I was remembering a rainy afternoon, a quiet boy with a heavy backpack, and one simple question. Need a ride? Looking back, I never imagined that 15-minute drive would become one of the most meaningful parts of my life. I didn't rescue a family. I simply noticed someone who needed a little help and decided not to drive past. The truth is, kindness doesn't always require money, perfect timing, or extraordinary talent. Sometimes it begins with a smile, an open door, a listening ear, or a ride home. Small acts often create stories far bigger than we ever expect. So the next time life gives you the chance to help someone, don't wait for the perfect moment. Be the person who chooses compassion. You may never fully know how far your kindness will travel, but somewhere, someone could be building a bridge because you stopped to care. And if this story touched your heart, carry its message with you today. Choose kindness, even when no one is watching. Because someone should.